Hello and welcome to Speaking Spirit, where we talk about all things spiritual. Your host, John Moore, is a shamanic practitioner and spiritual teacher. And now, here's John.
Hello, everybody. It is, per usual, when I record these things, morning time. It is an overcast morning here, but I'm watching the chipmunks. I have lots of chipmunks jumping joyously through the grass. Looks like we got some rain last night, and I don't know. Maybe they're enjoying the wet grass or they're hopping about. It brings me some joy. I love to watch wildlife and birds and all of those sorts of things. Today's topic should be interesting and I hope very useful. And it's definitely, everything I talk about is essentially near and dear to my heart. It's something that I care significantly about. It's something I might teach about when I do classes in person or online. And this is something that is important. It's a popular topic. Not necessarily why I picked it, just for its popularity. But today I'm going to talk about manifestation and the law of attraction and all things sort of around that. And I hope that I'm going to offer, because, gosh, there's a lot of heat around this topic, right? This topic has been popular for decades, going back even before the book and movie The Secret. The Secret sort of made it really popular, but there were teachers of law of attraction prior to The Secret, going back, obviously thousands of years if you go back to ancient magics and that sort of thing. But sort of from the popular route, we have folks like Neville Goddard, who I think, I could be wrong on this, but I think was active in the 1920s. So, 100 years ago, there was at least some interest and information about this that was on the popular scene. And, on a personal basis, I have used techniques. I've used spiritual techniques of manifestation to create lots of things in my life. Jobs, relationships, and money. When I've needed some money, it's come along, and I've used techniques that could be considered law of attraction to do that. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit. I'm going to talk about sort of what it is, where people kind of go wrong with it. So I'm going to hopefully give you some really practical information if you've ever struggled to get law of attraction to work, as most people have. Everybody didn't read The Secret and then win the lottery, right? Wouldn't that be cool? But, that's just not how it works. And I'm also going to talk to you about where it can go wrong a little bit, right? I have had some things happen that were supposed to happen. I think everything is supposed to happen, but were unintended, unpleasant consequences of doing manifestation work. So I'm going to talk all about that today. Now, there are tons and tons of techniques of manifestation, right? There's the, the law of attraction work in The Secret. There's, straight up what we call magic, sometimes spelled with MAGICK. And the I don't know what you want to call him, teacher, author, founder of Thelema, Aleister Crowley, defined magic as change in accordance with will, causing change in accordance with will. That's a very broad definition of magic, right? If I stand up and walk over to my refrigerator and grab a pitcher of iced tea and pour myself a glass, did I cause change in accordance with my will? Well, we'd have to define will, but sure, right. And is that magic, even though I did it on a physical level? So in essence, everything we do that creates a change that is intentional could be considered will. I mean, could be considered magic, could be considered manifestation. So I want to set a little bit of a baseline here and say that, when we hear the word manifestation or manifesting in relationship to spirituality, we tend to think about things that are miraculous. I sit down and I pray and a box of money drops out of the sky into my lap or something. Or I sit down and pray and I'm cured of some disease or what have you. And, true, those things would be forms of manifestation. However, I want to explain to you that we are constantly manifesting. We're just not conscious of it. And at a very real level, so let me explain. So you're hearing me speak some words, and those words are maybe creating pictures in your mind, or you're just in getting the meanings of the words. But are you really hearing me speak? What's happening is I'm on my end, I'm creating some vibrations in the air with my vocal apparatus, right? With my vocal cords in my mouth and my tongue. And then those go into a microphone, which translates those vibrations into electrical signals. And those electrical signals are being recorded digitally. So those are being translated into series of ones and zeros. And gosh, a whole bunch of other things happen. They go online, you download them, and sort of a reverse process happens. Those ones and zeros are changed into an electrical signal that creates vibrations in the air. They hit your eardrums. Your eardrums translate those into electrical signals into your brain, and your brain creates words, sentences, meanings, perhaps pictures out of that. So out of this, your consciousness is manifesting my words and voice out of thin air, out of vibrations. That doesn't mean I didn't speak these words. It doesn't mean there's not this reality, but you are creating your internal experience of me speaking these words, and anything that you see, touch, taste, hear. Your entire experience of the universe is within your consciousness, right? We overlook that because we live this on a day-to-day basis, but that in itself is a miracle, right? Some electrical signals can come in, create some vibrations in the air, and your consciousness can experience a symphony. Some electromagnetic waves can strike your retinas in your eyes, and your consciousness can create a sunset or a butterfly or a painting or what have you. So you are creating everything that you experience, you are creating inside your consciousness. You just aren't aware that you are creating it most of the time, right? Because our what we consider our conscious mind, the awareness, the little voice inside our head, our ego, right? Our ego, which is the little I that thinks we are separate from the world and not connected to it, separate from the universe and not connected to it. That experience of I tells us that we are separate from the world, that the world we're experiencing is objective, and everything we're the subject, and everything we experience is the object, and we're not creating any of this. We are experiencing objective reality. But ask two people who witnessed the same thing, the same event, to describe it, and you will get two very different descriptions of that, because they have different viewpoints. They have different aspects of consciousness. They have different experience filters through which everything comes in. So I think what I want to express fully here is that you are a co-creator of the universe. There's a divine part of you that is creating your entire experience of the universe, and that is happening using this field of attention or field of awareness we might call consciousness. And you are manifesting constantly everything you experience. You're just not necessarily doing it, I may, or depending upon how flexible I am with my attachment to my ego reality. If I look at, I'm holding a cup of coffee here. I'll have a little sip. If I stare at that cup of coffee hard enough and I play with my brain enough, can I change that into something else? Can I what we might call hallucinate that into something else? And probably I could. Would I be able to make that stable? Would I be able to turn that into a bag of gold, for example? We'll use an old alchemical thing. Can I turn my coffee cup into a bag of gold and have it stay that way permanently? Probably not. If I'm not saying that's not possible, because ultimately everything is possible. It's another idea I want to express. Ultimately, everything is possible. And I could hallucinate, and I use that word sort of loosely because we're constantly hallucinating the outside world, right? We have no real idea of what the outside world is actually like. We just have the ideas that are created in our consciousness. Okay. And I'll give you some examples, and we could break it down into physics and physiology and all kinds of stuff and study it and measure it and do all of these things ad infinitum. Okay. So I studied martial arts for my whole life. And when I was younger, in my youth and up through college, I studied the Japanese martial art karate, right? Empty hand way, karate do. And one of the things I might have to do from time to time is to break a board, punch through a board or chop through a board or kick through a board or whatever. Okay. And so on a conscious level, if I aimed my fist, let's say I was punching to break a board, if I aimed my fist at the surface of the board, my body and everything else aligned with that would not, would pull back or stop or, however it worked out, it would not break the board, and it would probably hurt my hand pretty badly. But if I was able to, and this is the real reason why they break boards in martial arts. If I was able to focus through the board as if the board was not there, my fist could pass through it relatively effortlessly. Yes, I would have to punch it. I would have to hit it pretty hard. You have to use proper technique. All of those things are important. But the most important thing was the change in consciousness, the change in focus and attention that's required to do that. And there's all kinds of things we do to train that, to hit through a target and that sort of thing. So that's the secret. Don't go out punch boards without learning the proper technique, please. But yeah, proper technique is important. But even with proper technique, if you don't have the correct, so proper technique, the physical aspect, and then there's proper technique, the mental, emotional, spiritual aspect. So I want to recognize that we are beings of pure spirit that are expressed in physical reality. I'm not going to say that physical reality isn't real, but our experience of physical reality comes 100% through our consciousness. And I'm using that term over and over again, consciousness, awareness. And how much of that, the question is, how much are we passive receivers and how much control do we have over that? So on one level, we have a mind, we have a body, we have a spirit, we have a soul. We can make all of these different layers of, layers of ourselves, right? And, our mind, we're able to experience thoughts, we're able to experience emotions, feelings. Feelings happen in our body and our mind. And all of these things, there's a lot of crossover, right? Where does our mind end and our body start, and vice versa? And as science learns more, we find, things like neuropeptides in lots of cells in the body, and they talk about the gut being the second brain of the body, and most serotonin is produced in the gut area, not in the brain. So, these things, this overlap between mind and body grows every day with the more that we learn. So one of the things about manifestation for me is that I find that it works better when all of our parts are in alignment and working together, meaning our body, mind, and spirit are doing the same thing, just like in karate class when you learn to punch through a board. Okay? Now, I could maybe, I don't know, I've never been able to do this, but develop telekinetic powers and sit there and use just my mind to break a board. I don't know. I think anything is possible, but I've yet to be able to do that. Be a useful skill if I could do something like that. I wouldn't have to reach for the TV remote if it was too far away. I could just move it with my mind. And have there been people in history who've been able to do these miracle things? Just think something and produce some effect, physical effect out of thin air. Yeah, absolutely. I believe that for sure. We hear all of these stories of different types of miracles, and but I don't think it's just a mental thing. I don't think it's straight up mental energy. I think mental energy combined with spiritual and some level of physical energy working together creates the greatest impact. I often talk about human beings because we're complex systems we're systems of systems. I'll use a car analogy pretty frequently because it's helpful, and even if you don't own a car and don't know necessarily how internal combustion engines work, you've had some experience and can understand what I'm talking about. So let's say I want to get from the state of Maine, where I am now, which is in the far northeast of the continental United States, and I want to drive to Southern California, a trip of approximately 3,000 miles in my car. Okay, so my navigation system works, right? I've got I've got a good GPS system, and it works, and it's got everything mapped out in my car. But I don't turn the car on. I don't start the engine. And I just sit in my car and stare at the navigation system. That's probably not going to work for me, right? And so I've got to turn the engine on and actually use the navigation system to drive across the country. Well, let's say that my tires are no good, right? No tread on the tires, and one of them is going to give out in 100 miles or so. Am I going to get to where I'm going Well, probably not, because again, there's another system that's not working in the same way. So even in martial arts, in the karate analogy, I can have my entire body going in the same direction, moving towards a target to break a board. But if I turn my eyes in a different direction as I'm doing that, if I'm not looking through the target, it's not going to work. It's a weird thing. I've demonstrated this to students not with having them hurt themselves on a board, but with different techniques. When I've been teaching, I'm like, okay, do this now. Just turn your eyes in a different direction. And the energy just changes, and the technique becomes weaker, and because there's no focus there. So my point is to truly manifest things, to truly get things to work. We want to get all of our systems working together. We want to get body, mind, and spirit working together. And I realize that many people's ideas of miracles or manifestation have to do with stuff just happening without physical interaction. And that is true, and that does happen. I'm just saying, in the beginning, it requires a lot of discipline, effort, focus, that sort of thing. So you give yourself a little advantage by taking what we call divine action or inspired action in the beginning. So many people think law of attraction is about sitting on the couch and thinking real hard and a box of money dropping into your lap. And again, that's possible. It's very possible. Is it probable? No. So what we want to do is increase the probability of what you want to manifest. So I'll give you an example of a time when I was looking for work, and I was looking for a job, and I wanted to have a good job, and I had certain criteria. It had to have certain types of benefits and all this. It was very, very specific. And, I went out and I tried just the physical route, right? I sent out 200 resumes and contacted all these companies, and nothing happened for months. Close to 4 months, maybe. I don't know if it was the economy or, whatever. My resume was terrible. I didn't change my resume. So, and I'm getting more and more frustrated. I'm trying to force things. And then I remembered my manifestation work that I'd done years before, and worked on getting into a state of allowing this to happen. And within a couple of weeks, I had gotten 4 job offers, 2 of which I had to, wound up being close enough that I had to decide between 2 of them. They both had amazing benefits. One of them was more money than I had ever made in my life, and more, but it was what I intended. So intention is key here. What I intended to manifest. And so I accepted it and took that job. So what happened was I got into a space of allowing. I used some of the techniques, but I had also taken physical action. In other words, when I'll also say that all of these companies came to me. I didn't apply to any of them. They all came kind of looking to me through, online sources or whatever. And, it was amazing because as things started to align, I sort of said, I would like to get 4 offers. I got 4 offers. I would like to get an offer of at least this much. I got an offer of that much. I would like to, have these benefits and receive those benefits. But it didn't happen until I sort of let go. But I did have to, obviously when they contacted me, I had to take some physical actions. I had to respond or it wouldn't have happened, I had to send my resume, I had to interview, I had to do all of those things. I had to take all those follow-up actions. But it started with my intention, and it started with letting go. And I will give you, I don't know if this is a technique or not, but I will give you a technique that I use sometimes when I'm trying to manifest things that works. It works wonderfully for me. So I sit and I think about the thing that I want to manifest. Let's say it's it's a job, let's say. And I will say to myself, remember when I got that job? And I will imagine that I got the job in the past, that I already have what it is that I'm trying to manifest. And then I ask myself, how did I feel when I got that? How did I feel when that manifested? And that little technique I find really aligns mind and spirit. In the spirit world, time is really flexible. Our experience of time is really attached to matter. And so in the non-material world, time is sort of loosey-goosey, very flexible. So again, I think this is, part of law of attraction is you have to act as if you have already, or, imagine or generate the feelings of, and the feeling is important, the emotion is important, of already having the thing that you're trying to manifest. Remember when. That's the technique that I used. Remember when I got those 4 job offers and how did that feel? And I made up a little story scenario in my head. Felt really good. Now imagine when remember when one of those offers was this much money and you accepted it. And then I go in and imagine that, and then release attachment to the outcome. That's a big step. Attachment tends to push things away a little bit. So let me give you a couple of hints and a couple of caveats when it comes to manifestation and law of attraction. So one hint that, when I've worked with students or I've worked with people on a mentoring or coaching basis and they're working on manifesting stuff, is that you need to allow the universe to work out the details of what you're manifesting. You don't need to, but if you do, it's going to happen quicker in ordinary reality and it's going to be easier. I'll give you an example. Let's say that I wanted to manifest $100,000 US. And I say, I will receive a check from the bank for $100,000 US on Tuesday in June on, such and such a day at, 3:45 in the afternoon. And, the reason I'm going to get it is this and that and this and that. When all I really want to do is manifest $100,000. So a better intention is, remember when I received $100,000 out of the blue, unexpectedly. And the spiritual teacher Lester Levinson used to say, let go and let God. You make your intention and you let go and let God. I'll use the term the universe because I think that the word God can be sort of loaded. But I'm talking about the same thing, the all-pervading consciousness and manifester of the universe, God or goddess or the universe. When we let go of the details, things manifest easier, because if you think about all of the things that have to happen, the universe will follow kind of a path of least resistance, right? So every condition you put on something creates more resistance. And this is doesn't create resistance in the universe, but it creates resistance in your ego, in your interface, like becomes less and less possible for you. Unless you completely undo all of your conditioning from the time you were born until now, every condition you place on something you're trying to manifest will make it more challenging for you. Not to say that it isn't possible. Again, everything is possible. Everything is possible in consciousness. You could get that check from the bank, $400,000 on Tuesday, and the reason could be the bank, you won an award at the bank or something. The problem is if you don't perceive any of those things as being true, like the bank doesn't have an award, the bank doesn't hand out $100,000 checks just at random, that sort of thing. Again, you're not getting your body, mind, and spirit into alignment. Your belief is not gonna be there. So, that being said, you can manifest. It is possible to manifest very specific things. Very, very specific things. I'll give you an example of a caveat, though. So here's something from my own life. So, I had a relationship with someone. I knew this person. They were my friend. They were, well, I won't get into more detail than that because I don't want to give away an identity or anything like that. But, there was a woman who was a good friend of mine, and I'd become single again, and I wanted to have a relationship with this person. I found her attractive and intelligent, and we had very similar ideas about spirituality and similar practices and all of these things. And I'm like, I am going to manifest a love relationship with this person. And boy, did I, head over heels in love. We moved in together for a short period of time, but the relationship was a disaster. The relationship was tumultuous. This person had what I think is a very severe undiagnosed mental illness, one that is sort of easy to hide sometimes, but then comes out in relationships, and just ended horribly, disastrously. Kind of messed up my life for a period of time as well, right? Because what I didn't manifest was a loving, kind, wonderful relationship. What I manifested was I want a love relationship with this specific person. And, so, it happened, and it was an important thing for me to learn, to understand, to learn about the power of these things. So one has to be careful when manifesting, about being really specific about things. And you can manifest something specific, but, it might not have intended consequences. And we can always tack on for the highest good to our intention, right? For everyone's highest good. I would like to manifest $100,000 in a way that is for my highest good. And maybe this relationship was for my highest good. Maybe I needed to learn something about trust and boundaries and that sort of thing. But that being said, so the tip then is to really, like, if you're trying to manifest something uber specific and you're trying to control the details of how it's manifested, that's very egoic. And the ego is the part of you that doubts manifestation happens, that doesn't think you're creating the universe every second of every day. That's your ego that says you're separate from the world, that you're not connected to everything. The ego is not evil, it's just not necessarily correct. And everybody has an ego. I don't care how enlightened you are, you still have an experience of the I as a separate being. You might have more of an experience of non-duality, of interconnectedness. That can sure happen. But I don't think the sense of I as a separate self goes away while you exist in a physical body, while you have a physical body. Even, you might not identify with the ego as much, and that's kind of a weird thing, right? Identifying. You identify as the separate self, because the thing, ultimately, it's, I'm getting a little deep here, but ultimately it's the consciousness that provides the identity of who you are. And so moving towards spiritual wholeness and spiritual alignment, and I don't necessarily like to use the word enlightenment because that has very different meanings for different people, and in some worlds that has a very technical meaning, so I could potentially be using this word wrong. But moving towards enlightenment, part of that is disidentifying with the ego. So you understand you have an ego, and some people don't understand that they have an ego, but first you understand you have an ego. You have a sense of I as a separate self, but then you disidentify from that. You say that sense of I is not who I am. I have a sense of I, but I am not the sense of I. I am the thing that perceives the sense of I. I am the conscious field that perceives the sense of I. I have a physical body, but I am not the physical body. I am the field of consciousness that perceives the physical body. I have a mind, and I have emotions, and I have thoughts, but I am none of those things. I am the field of consciousness that perceives those things. So the more you identify with what we'll call beingness is that field of consciousness that just exists. Your sense of existence, not as a separate self, just as being. The more you identify with that, the easier manifestation becomes, because you're not as tied to the ego as a separate self. And the ego as a separate self is the part of, has been trained since birth that, magic and miracles, happen. Maybe you were taught from birth that they don't happen, that they're not possible. And that's the thing too, right? So all of these beliefs are tied up with the ego. Everything that you hold to be true, even if you look at your hand in front of your face and you say, this hand exists because I can see it, that's a belief. It may be true, but your experience of that as truth is a belief. Once we start breaking these things down and disidentifying, manifestation becomes more effortless. The more we identify with the ego, the more we say, I am a separate self, completely separated from the universe, and I am just a receiver of the world as it is around me instead of a creator, instead of the entire world that I experience existing inside my consciousness. The more you identify with the ego, the more challenging the more challenges you will experience when trying to manifest or use law of attraction or perform miracles or perform real magic, change in the universe according to will. On a very real level, you are, as a separate self, you are a spark of divinity. You have this spark of divinity within you. I shouldn't say you are, I should say you have the spark of divinity within you. So you are a co-creator of the universe. The more you understand that, the more you identify with beingness and identify that you have this divine spark and that you are not separate from God, the universe, the creator, the field of consciousness, Brahman in Sanskrit, right? In some traditions, some Advaita traditions, they say Atman is Brahman. So Atman is the individual soul and Brahman is the oversoul of the universe. And in some traditions, they say there is no difference. And I honestly believe that. I do believe that. I've had some experience with that. That we are not separate, that we are all connected, we are all one. So, just to wrap up, remember to get ego out of the way a little bit, as much as you can. So as much as you can identify with consciousness, get body, mind, and spirit in alignment, take divine inspired action. And again, manifestation isn't about necessarily doing nothing. It's just recognizing that doing is happening and that doing is in alignment with being and having. That could be a little confusing, I understand. Being, doing, and having. You can't stop being. You can stop doing, and you can stop having, but you can't stop being. So start from the place of being. Identify with your beingness. Identify with your existence. Understand that the quality of your existence is consciousness, or the ability to perceive, to be able to pay it, have attention is sort of volitional consciousness, where you place your attention. And where attention goes, energy flows. So wherever you place your attention, that's where your energy is going to go. Again, there's the karate analogy. Focus through the target. And the target, it's almost like the target isn't there, the board. You break the board. As much as you can, get the ego out of the way. You do that by identifying with beingness, by identifying as the field of consciousness that you are. And then you can play the remember when game. Remember when suddenly $100,000 came to me. How did I feel when that happened? And generate those feelings inside your field of consciousness. That sort of aligns everything. That makes, it's sort of like, clearing the tracks, clearing the train tracks so the train can pass, unimpeded. So those are my hints and caveats and little, technique for law of attraction work. It's important stuff. And it might seem mundane, but it's important to understand why we manifest and why we focus on manifesting. Beyond the fact that I'm going to get stuff. I'm going to get stuff I want. I'm going to have a life that's comfortable and happy and have everything I want and be rich and whatever. Beyond that, because those are all worldly concerns, and all of those things, relationships, everything else are temporary. Everything is temporary, right? What is not temporary, the thing that is not temporary is your beingness. Is that when you manifest, you're demonstrating to yourself, to all parts of yourself, that yes, you are your beingness. Yes, you are a conscious co-creator and an intimate part of this universe, and that is a direct experience of spiritual truth. There are lots of ways to directly experience spiritual truth. This is one of them. It happens to be an important one. This is a return to your divinity. This is a movement, again, away from ego. Again, it's a movement away from identifying with the small I, which is our sense of maybe I am the body, maybe I'm really identified with my body, or maybe I'm really identified with my thoughts. Both of those things are super temporary. How long does a thought last? Right? How often does our body change? And someday we will die and our body will go back to the earth, or maybe we get cremated or what have you, but the body components will be broken down. But that essential, immortal part of you that is divine, that's the important part to identify with. And doing manifestation work helps that along. It's a lesson that you probably, if you are listening to this podcast and you're trying to do these things, it's a lesson that you're here to learn. You're here to learn how you are a co-creator, how you are part of divinity, split off just so divinity can experience things and learn and grow. So with that, I hope that you'll take some of this to heart. I hope that you'll practice. I hope that you'll manifest great things. Contact me through my website, which is Maine, M-A-I-N-E, shaman, SHAMAN.com. If you have any questions, if there are topics you would like me to talk about on a future podcast, I would be happy to do that. I would like to get back to having some guests. I took a short break from that for a period of time, but I will have some more guests because I think it's fantastic to have some different perspectives out there. Anyway, I love you all. I wish you well, and we'll talk to you next time.
You have been listening to Speaking Spirit with your host, John Moore. For more info or to contact John, go to mainshaman.com. That's MAINESHAMAN.com.